Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jen Jordan, and I lead content and thought leadership at Insight Partners. I also organize the ScaleUp AI conference coming up in just over 2 short weeks on November 12th, which features keynotes from Ali K. Miller and Andrew Ng. As a preview to this amazing event, I'm excited to introduce this fireside discussion with Exiger CEO Brandon Daniels and Insight Partner Principal Arjun Mehta. During our session today, we're pleased to offer you 35% off a virtual ticket for ScaleUp AI so you can join us for these great conversations. The code and website will appear below on the screen during this chat. With that, please welcome our speakers to the stage. Over to you, Arjun.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to this episode of ScaleUp Soundbites. I'm Arjun Mehta. I'm a principal at Insight Partners, and today we're going to be featuring Exiger, one of our portfolio companies. They are a leader in supply chain risk management, and their CEO, Brandon, is here with us today for this fireside chat. Exiger sits at the heart of this convergence between supply chain risk management and AI, and manages risk for some of the most mission-critical products and companies in the world. On a personal note, I really enjoy working with Brandon on a board level. Ton of momentum in this business with already 3 completed add-ons since we invested earlier this year. So today we're going to delve deeper into what AI really means for a company like Exiger and the space it operates in. Brandon, it's great to have you here.
Arjun, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. So let's get right to it. Brandon, can you introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit with our audience on what Exiger does and the value that we drive?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Brandon Daniels, as you mentioned. I'm the CEO here. My background is really doing 2 things. One is building technology and tech-enabled businesses. I built a couple of billion-dollar businesses over my career. And the second piece is managing major large-scale risks. So I was on the COVID-19 White House task force, and our technology helped the government to purchase over $7 billion of goods and avoid over $500 million of fraud, waste, and abuse, right? And I've also done things like I was on the HSBC monitorship. I helped 3 of the banks during the financial collapse investigate what the heck was going on and how to solve it. And then early in my career, I did a lot of work in the medical device and pharmaceutical space, helping them to overhaul that industry from the compliance issues they were seeing. And Exiger really sits at the confluence of these 2 things. Exiger is at the confluence of operations, better operations and risk management. So, Arjun, you said it well. Exiger is the leading supply chain visibility, orchestration, and risk management platform. It's driven by artificial intelligence. Our customers use artificial intelligence to get visibility to their suppliers, to opportunities within their suppliers, and to the areas where disruption or risk to those suppliers may cause problems for them. Now, we're doing this for 60 of the top federal agencies in the U.S. federal government. We're also doing this for global agencies, global government agencies, so MOD and BEIS and EU regulators. We're also doing this for Fortune 2000 companies, Arjun, in heavily regulated advanced manufacturing sectors. And what we're doing is we're helping them to do 3 things. We're helping them to map their supply chains for visibility, and then assess them for potential risk, as I mentioned. So we're monitoring ESG risks. We're monitoring supplier financial health. We're monitoring Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act violations. And then finally, we're helping them to add resilience or to increase or to reduce cost, right? So helping them to understand where Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton or the longshoreman strike might stop them from being able to deliver to their customers or increase their cost, or where finding that they think they're buying from 7 suppliers, but they're really buying from 1, and how to buy better from that 1, how to use that volume to reduce cost in their infrastructure.
I love it. Makes a ton of sense. And now let's kind of layer in AI. So how do we think AI, maybe stepping back, just talking about the market, how do we think AI impacts supply chain risk management? What are some of the key use cases that you're seeing as game changers?
Absolutely, Arjun. Well, you and I have had a couple of chances to talk about how AI is impacting this industry. And the first thing is, I would say the overall impact is positive. It has been an incredible, salutary trend that artificial intelligence is increasing the capability of supply chain, procurement, and compliance organizations to tackle their problems more effectively. It's doing it through really kind of like three things, right? The first is 2 years ago, the incredible power of artificial intelligence just wasn't well known. And so, first of all, it's making it so that people will trust AI. People understand AI. People are utilizing AI, right? And so, when we're bringing our artificial intelligence solutions to bear, to, for instance, break down a product into its bill of materials, into its constituent parts, right? And we're saying, here is how that product's made, one. And then two, here are the suppliers in that product. And then we can provide them the evidence behind it. Our customers, because they're used to using things like ChatGPT now, because they're used to using things like Midjourney, they now understand the role that AI can play in augmenting their data, augmenting their results. The second thing that it's helping to do, that this sort of like infusion or growth of generative AI is doing, is it's helping to bridge a skills gap. So what we do is really complex. It's really hard to understand sometimes. Like, we're talking about parts and materials and alloys and forms, and those can impact how the risks that your suppliers have are going to impact you. And so one of the things that generative AI is doing is it's making it so procurement and supply chain people or compliance people on the other side of that coin, right, are able to bridge a skills gap. So for instance, when we flag that a supplier in our customers has a risk related to potentially something like human trafficking or forced labor, the first thing that they want to understand is, how does this impact us? Do we have current products that are being used that are using this supplier? Are those products prioritized? Do we have products that are alternatives to that supplier, right, that we can utilize? So the first thing that it's doing for procurement and supply chain people is it's helping them to understand how risk can impact their supply, because they're geniuses in performance, in schedule, in cost, in creating value out of supplier negotiations. But they don't have the background and training in compliance and regulatory standard practices. Artificial intelligence is making it so that we can bridge that skills gap. And that goes also from compliance back to supply chain, right? Compliance people don't necessarily have a good, strong understanding of the chemical composition of their products. They have to lean on supply chain. So AI is helping to bridge that skills gap inside of organizations. And then finally, it's helping people to do more with less, right? So what has happened over the last few years is people that are trying to just purchase a set of software or components or computers from a vendor, they have this issue where they're trying to assess for risk, but there just simply aren't enough resources to do it. It's not like you're getting 1,000-person supply chain compliance team infused into your organization tomorrow, right? So what the AI is also helping to do is it's helping people to do more with less. So I can still assess my supplier for the things that I know how to do, and the team has built up skill sets and resources to do. But it's also helping them to extend outside of what their domain is and to essentially add virtual resources. These AIs, these AI agents that we've built, these domain-specific capabilities, they are basically like additional people in your department, right? Helping you to solve these challenges that are net new and you don't have the resources to tackle.
Yeah, I love it. I think one of the aha moments for me when you and I first started talking was just how our technology and our AI makes our users superheroes in their organizations, right? It really empowers them, brings together all this information right at their fingertips, and really empowers them in the organization to be really strategic. So makes a ton of sense. We've talked so far a little bit about how customers use AI and an external view of how AI is used, but talk a little bit more about how AI is used internally at an organization like Exiger. What does that look like?
Well, that's a great question. At Exiger, right, we're utilizing AI in multiple ways. So, for instance, in our own sales and marketing, right, one of the things that is difficult is to align on messaging in RFPs, messaging in customer communications, messaging in thought leadership. So we've actually taken our own data, all of our old RFPs, all of our marketing materials, all of our best written presentations, we've put them into an Exiger AI. And it allows our users across the globe to basically come in and say, I need an email to people in the healthcare industry that talks about how Exiger's capability can be used to solve the challenges that you're seeing right now with IV fluid shortages, okay? And so because we've loaded up all of our thought leadership and all of our data and all of our slicks and all of our content around our products to that AI tool, it's made it so that those sales reps can be more efficient, more effective, don't need to be deep domain experts, and they can get out a very succinct, very impactful email to their customers on the fly. You know, that used to be a big drain for marketing or a big drain for SDRs or a big drain for domain experts and pre-sales. Now we're accelerating that, and we're basically, creating this brain that everyone can feed off of, right? So we're seeing that in sales and marketing. And then on the other side, look, what we're going to see over the next few years is that search engines are going to become less and less used, and AI, generative AI specifically, is going to become more and more how we consume and how we search information. And so the other thing that we're doing is we're making sure that the truths about our company, our scale, what problems we can solve, what use cases we're solving, what customers are using us, that those things are going into the AI tools themselves. So we're publishing content to the AI tools. We're putting it into the systems and into the databases and into the publishers that they index from, so that when our customers go out or our prospects go out and they search inside of these AI tools or they ask questions, they're getting the answers that help our customers to understand that Exiger can solve these problems, right? And so it's disrupting the way that we're doing business and accelerating the way that we're doing business, but it also is bringing about new channels for marketing to our customers in ways that they will trust, I think, in 5-10 years, way more than even search engines or search targeting.
Yeah, I love it. I know that's an area we've been working really closely together on.
Absolutely, Arjun. That epiphany of that need, right, to make sure that we're ahead of how these different generative AI tools are being used in our customers, and the need to make sure that the facts about Exiger are in those AI tools came from a session that we did with your team at Insight. And it's been incredibly impactful for how we're thinking about the future of digital marketing.
Love to hear it. Yeah, great. And it kind of ties in with, supply chain is a now industry, right? Like you have to be really surgical in surfacing solutions to problems that are very top of mind, right? So what you mentioned around just using using our tools to make sure our sales reps are really armed with that kind of what is top of mind for our buyers is super critical. I want to talk a little bit about hallucinations, because I think that's something that's a topic that's obviously very relevant for AI, especially in our markets where this stuff we're touching is mission critical. You can't really get this wrong, right? So how do you think about the use of AI and hallucinations in our end markets, and where is human oversight necessary sometimes to kind of manage what is a pretty nuanced supply chain risk analysis?
So humans engaging with the technology is how the technology is useful, right? We think of adoption as mission. So the first thing I'll say right off the top, Arjun, is that our tool, I don't think, is eliminating jobs, right? I think that it is allowing people to do jobs that have just gotten a heck of a lot harder, right? And so when I think about hallucinations, I think how do you combat this issue of trusting the solutions? Well, the way that we've looked at that is we actually try to compete models, right? We compete models to ensure that we're getting to the right answer. Because if we have our own internal models that we've built, Arjun, because we've been building AI models for over a decade, we've got a 20-person cognitive computing team that's literally only focused on either getting a risk decision right or getting a data point right across this morass of conflicting information, right? So we build our own models. We get models from OpenAI or from Claude or from any of these generative AI tools. And what we do is we compete them. And we compete them to see where there's synergy across all of them. Because if we can identify the places where we've got that source of truth and all of the models point to the fact that this is a fact, then we can have high probability, high consistency of decision making. And where there are conflicts, that's where we need to insert a human. That's where we need to stop the automation in the workflow and make sure that we're making that decision as crystal clear and as evidenced as possible, right? And what that does is it makes it so the 5% of the time or 10% of the time where you see hallucinations, and we've all experienced it, like I've even experienced it trying to figure out the best route from my home in Richmond to our offices in DC. It said that there was an express lane that it was open. That wasn't. And it just said, sorry, I hallucinated. So what we have to do is we have to say, okay, when is the model dead right? Okay. And let's say that's 90% of the time that the model's dead right. And when is the model potentially, where are there ambiguities or where is it wrong? And let's say that's 10%. If that 10% is speckled all about the 100%, it's intermixed with the 90%, and you can't tell the difference, then you can't trust the AI, because then you always have to do the same process to get to the answer. But if you can distinguish the 90% from the 10%, then you can actually say, here's what I'm going to automate completely, and here are the things that I'm going to put people against. And that's what we've been doing with our models, and it's been incredibly effective. We compete, for instance, our adjudication, our AI adjudication of a risk with what we're seeing coming from a generative model, and then comparing the two and coming out to a decision. And if those decisions match, then we know that we can just print that forward to our customers with high confidence. And that's where this 10x of capability and capacity really comes out and provides results.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. You touched on earlier what AI does maybe to kind of the staffing, and the fact that this actually probably creates more jobs, it gets more and more people enabled. What does this do for the supply chain risk management market size? Like, what does it do for the TAM?
Yeah. So the reality is, from our perspective, it dramatically expands it. And I know that's kind of self-serving, but I'll give you an example. I was speaking with a few of our customers and a few folks that I'm just talking to generally about the state of the industry. Some folks from VCU, some folks from Jefferson Health, some folks from Northwell, customers that we have, and even our government agencies like VA and VHA and HHS, right? So I've been speaking with them, and one thing that everyone's concerned with is the current IV fluids shortage, and how could they have gotten ahead of it, or if they were our customers, they got ahead of it and they were able to implement mitigations so that they weren't delaying surgeries, which a lot of hospitals are right now. The IV fluid shortage has made it so that you're actually disrupting people's health, people's lives.
Yeah.
And the fact is, we only have ever had resources to make sure that cost and schedule and performance of a vendor, making sure that that part was coming in on time. We only ever had the resources to make sure that happened. We never had the resources to go from the 1,000 suppliers at tier 1 to the 700,000 suppliers at tier 5, and to understand where there might be risks there. And so what I think AI is doing, Arjun, is it's making it so that this like turn the bag over dump of new disruption requirements, new risk requirements, new issues that people are having to deal with today, that they can actually cope with them. And so it's making it so that you don't, as you're growing as a hospital network, or as you're growing as a business, or as you're just, trying to fight these disruptions or increases of cost. Like I heard from Humana that their cost of materials has gone up by 12% over the last year. 12%. And like, how do you ever cope with that as a hospital network or as an insurer? The only way that you can is getting ahead of it and creating a more resilient universe. But that's where you need AI, because you don't have access to double, triple, quadruple the people that you need to actually do it. You need the AI to help you to find these issues, help you to find alternative supply, help you to find an optimized warehousing solution, and then implement those things so that you are the hospital network, so that you are the insurer hospital combination, so that you're the medical device or life sciences company that is not suffering these consequences and doesn't have to build a bunch of cost around people to make it so that you can start to predict some of it.
Yeah, the supplier is kind of like the tip of the iceberg, right? There's just right. So much more complexity in today's supply chains. 4 or 5 layers down, you might be at thousands and thousands of suppliers. That's a massively hard problem to solve without Exiger and without the tools that we have that enable that. I want to talk a little bit about, AI. People have different models, different solutions that they're bringing to the market. What makes our approach on AI different from what others are sort of bringing to the market? What's unique about Exiger's perspective?
Yeah,
Exiger's deployment of AI.
So the thing that I think is so different about what we're doing, Arjun, is that we're focusing on the systems that you don't own. So like there are amazing companies in this market. ServiceNow, amazing company, right? Workday, amazing company. Salesforce, amazing company that are helping you to bring AI to problems. The thing is, they're helping you to bring AI to what you own in your ERP, what you own in your PLM, what you own in your CRM, right? Our differentiated approach is that we're helping you to, one, create the data that you don't own, so that you can see that third tier supplier and you can see the facility that they're producing, let's say a polymer out of. And we're using the same data that you would want in your ERP in your system for that supplier. So we're using AI first to create the data that you otherwise don't have, because your organization no longer stops at your doorstep. One of our customers, Nissan, Arjun, told me that 95% of the cost of manufacturing a car are parts manufactured outside of their manufacturing floor space, outside of their operation.
Think of the risk from that. That's crazy.
It's crazy, right? So the first thing is we're helping you to create the data. The second thing is then we're helping you to utilize that information inside of a multi-tier orchestration platform. So, most platforms that exist today, you're using that direct supplier collaboration and control to actually effectuate change. What we're doing is we're making it so that you can actually orchestrate with a forecast demand plan your multi-tier supply chain. So you can look out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years at your demand plan and see where your tier 5 supplier just simply isn't buying enough titanium to meet your need, right? So that multi-tier orchestration, and then using AI to bring down the noise that can come from going multi-tiers, that's where also our AI is really helpful. And then also that last thing of bridging the skills gap. So we boil everything down to risk scores, and you can set your risk appetites. Like, it's still the human saying, this is the risk level that I can't tolerate. But we boil everything down to risk scores so that you don't have to be an accountant to know that there's a financial health issue in a vendor, right? You'll see
it's a configurable risk score. Yeah.
Right. The risk scoring algorithm. So we're trying to simplify your user journey through AI. We're trying to make it so that you have data and workflows that go out to the experts and the stakeholders that can actually help you to make the decisions. And then finally, we're helping you to create the data that allows you to manage these operations that you don't own, you control, and you don't have access to the data.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And by the way, look, my wife's cameo here behind me there a few seconds ago. Look, last question here. Last question here. What will AI look like in supply chain risk management in 5-10 years? If you kind of put on that lens and think about the future, what does that look like to you?
Gosh, if I have my druthers, right, it will break down the silos between engineering and finance and procurement and ops, right? And compliance, so that anyone can ask the question, how does this impact me, right? Because that's the promise of AI. Like, our XSB tool set allows you to take apart, break it down into all of its part attributes, and then find other suppliers in your environment that could manufacture that same part. Imagine that as you build a new product, finding all of the potential supply chains that you could start that you don't have access to right now. Imagine that as you identify a problem, like, we saw a couple of years ago where the F-35 stopped, and it stopped because there was a product deep in the supply chain that was creating an issue, right?
Right.
Imagine being able to say at that moment, oh, who else has that same magnet, right? And then, imagine, a world in which finance can look at those materials and say, oh, wow, we're actually buying 25, billion tons of aluminum, and we also have to reduce our carbon emissions. There's a supplier in aluminum that we could give a contract to. They'll give us a 7% discount. We can give them a 1% discount. We can give them 1% of that discount back to implement an ethical standards policy for all of their underlying mining and ore extraction. And now we've been able to track and trace our social responsibility and environmental responsibility to our underlying supplier and reduce our total landed cost by 6%.
Wow.
That kind of universal use of supply chain data is where AI is taking us in the future.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's hard not to get excited about what we're doing at Exiger. I mean, this is amazing. I'd recommend everyone take some time to check out what we're doing. Look, this has been a wonderful discussion, Brandon. I really appreciate you joining us. Great conversation today. I want to make sure I added a little plug. ScaleUp AI is coming up. It's just around the corner, November 12th. Would love to have folks join us here. We'll have more folks like Brandon there for some great conversations. So thank you again, Brandon, for the fireside chat today. Wonderful, really, really good topics here that we're going to continue to unpack at Scale AI. And we look forward to that discussion. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Arjun.